Yesterday, he spoke on a panel. It was one of the more engaging discussions I've been a part of. His name is Dennis Arsenault, that's right, and he's the CEO of Organigram. As CEO, Dennis has grown Organigram into a sustainable and successful employer for the community, his partners, and investors. Under his leadership, the company has emerged as a leader in the Canadian cannabis market, as it recently announced significant visionary expansionary plans. He has spent the past 25 years as a successful entrepreneur, building and running and selling several profitable businesses.
All right. Technology, I'll leave it to you. I'll give a couple notes as while he's loading the presentation. I'm not one to follow a slide deck much. I think an opportunity to really connect with the audience and share a little bit. What I was asked to speak about was the Canadian opportunity, so to explain a little bit of what's going on in Canada and how that relates to from an investment perspective. And obviously, having come here, I'll take a couple minutes to explain a little bit about how Organigram fits and blends into that opportunity. So a little bit two-pronged.
You touch the arrows and scroll down.
Scroll down. You might as well go to the second one for the disclaimer. Perfect. Yep. And how do I get to the next slide?
Just scroll.
Oh, just scroll?
The arrow.
Okay. So, first of all, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to come out this afternoon and talk with you. Obviously looking forward to sharing a little bit of what's going on in Canada. The relevance, I guess, in terms of the landscape throughout the world, we'll start with how it works out in Canada. So, the policy in Canada currently is medical marijuana is legal. It's legal for the entire country. And that was not a government decision. The Supreme Court ruled in 2001 that Canadian citizens should be entitled to access to medical marijuana. So back in 2001, it was about 100 people that challenged us all the way to the Supreme Court. And the governments at the time were not in favor of it. But in our land, the court is the highest authority. So there was about 100 people, and so the government had to react to that reality, and they gave these 100 people the right to grow their own. So the way that worked, you went to see a doctor. The doctor wrote you a document that said you had arthritis. The doctor wrote you a document that said you had multiple sclerosis. The doctor wrote you a document that said that you had chronic pain. And you took that document, you submitted it to the government. The government gave you the right to grow your own medicine. 100 people, 2001. So let's fast forward to 2012. The government's got a bit of a problem. You got 37,000 people in Canada that have the right to grow medical marijuana for themselves. Now, the temptation to grow it for maybe a few friends and family may have been a problem for some of the 37,000 people. So the government, in April of 2014, put in a new program where it said, okay, Canadian citizens have a right to medical marijuana, but we're going to give out licenses, federally regulated licenses by the federal government for companies to grow medical marijuana and to provide it to the patients. So now in Canada, it started on April 1st, 2014. You go see your doctor and he writes you a prescription, just like you would for any other medication you may want to buy. You take that prescription and you can't go to a store in Canada yet. You need to mail it to one of the 38 licensed producers who then immediately ships you your product and arrives at your home. So that's the system with which we operate under currently. There's 38 licenses that are controlled by about 30 companies. From the investment perspective, there's about 10 of us that are publicly traded. And I'll get back to that a little bit later on in terms of that. We can sell the flower, and we can sell a very limited form of oil. Scroll down. And the regulations are changing, and basically every month the regulator comes out with different regulations. So for medical marijuana in Canada, it was projected to be $1.4 billion. And it was projected to be 450,000 Canadians that would take medical marijuana as a medicine. And they felt that would take till 2024. Well, we're literally 2 years into it. There's already 130,000 people that have the prescription. So it's growing much faster than people anticipated. The reality, I'm not a doctor, but medical marijuana works. And the one that wants to jam it down your throat to say it doesn't work is the pharmaceutical industry. Because every time you buy medical marijuana, they sell less drugs. So the reality is the times will change. And it will come that it'll be a medicine that is utilized for many, many different ailments. And it'll come that even in the states, state by state, barrier by barrier will be broken down. And the lobby that doesn't want medical marijuana to arrive will arrive. It's the same lobby that doesn't want it to become a recreational drug. It's called alcohol. Okay, so not much happens on our earth that someone doesn't profit from. And if you're taking $1 from someone else, it doesn't happen often sometimes. So I like to speak bluntly about my passion for medical marijuana, and I like to speak bluntly about where I think marijuana is going in our society. So that gives you a good synopsis of what's happening in Canada. It's a tremendous opportunity to have a license currently, the medical marijuana program continues to evolve and prosper. Now, if you move backwards to October 2015, we had a federal election in Canada. The party in power had been there 12 years. They were a little tired, as we call it in politics. And there's a new government that ran that said we're going to legalize recreational marijuana if we get elected. They weren't supposed to win. They were never ahead in the polls. I think you got a little bit of an experience that I live in the United States here also. They were never supposed to win, but they did. And they ran on a platform, many platforms, but one of the ones they would pass recreational marijuana. Simply put, for Organigram, for the companies that are licensed to produce medical marijuana in the country, you basically won the lottery that night. So now, instead of being a $1.4 billion projected market, they're talking about $8 to $10 billion in annual sales. So this is the opportunity that currently sits in Canada. Probably important to note also, because we all understand that politicians make promises and some don't keep them. In our system in Canada is different than your system. Okay, so we have a parliamentary system where we have 339 members of parliament, like you guys might have House of Representatives. And our system is straightforward. If the ruling party has a majority, and the Liberals in our country have a majority, they can legislate anything they want. And it doesn't matter what the Canadian citizens think, and it doesn't matter what the opposition parties think. Very relevant, because we all understand politicians make promises to get elected, and then they make a promise to enrich themselves. They kind of forget the first promises they made. So they ran on the platform. They announced in December they were going to do this. Symbolically, our health minister went to New York at United Nations on April 20th, which we understand is 420 Day. It's a symbolic day for the marijuana industry, and announced at United Nations on that pulpit that we are going to legalize recreational marijuana in 2017, and specifically in April 2017. So as an investor, we want to look at legislative risk. We want to look at opportunity. So, Canada has given us all of the clarity we need to understand that this is an opportunity. They've put a timeline on it. It's going to happen. So, the way it's going to happen in our country, it's going to be federally regulated. The producers will be federally regulated, will be given a license by the federal government. And like alcohol in our country, it will be distributed within each province. It'll be the provincial governments that will decide. Is it 18 years old? Is it 19 years old? Will it be sold in a dispensary? Will it be sold by private stores? These things will be determined by the provincial governments. Okay? So it gives you a little bit of the landscape of how things are maybe different in Canada and the United States, and it starts to give you a little bit of an understanding of the opportunity. And when I speak of opportunity, I compare it a little bit to the United States. It's not comparable. I'm not knocking the opportunities in marijuana in the United States, but you have the federal government, who still treats it as a Schedule I drug, which is classified much higher than even cocaine. It's classified like heroin. And they're not about to take it off as Schedule I drug. Most of the industry for marijuana is trying to lobby the federal government to bring it down to a Schedule II drug, which would permit your universities to do research and permit your banks to be able to deal with the money from it. So there's a lot of risk in the United States. And from what I can see with your just recent election, not anticipated that to go away anytime soon, because your AG has pretty much stated what he thinks about marijuana, and I don't see him smoking a joint soon. So this is the investment risk that you have here in the United States. In Canada, full clarity from an investment perspective. And when I speak about our health minister going to the United Nations, our government has said we're going to legalize it because it takes it out of the hands of children. or limits their ability to get it. We're going to legalize it because we can have a higher quality product. We're going to legalize it because it takes the profits out of organized crime. Oh, please give me a break. You're going to legalize it because you're going to collect a lot of taxes. Okay? Our country in 1992 legalized gambling throughout the whole country. And I remember the story at the time, it was something about it was good for us. I can't imagine how legalizing gambling is good for us. They just collect more taxes. So I say that not to be skeptical or cynical, it's that it's going to happen. And now we're here in terms of an investment conference. I've been asked to present as to how you as an investor can make some money within this changing environment. So I take the opportunity to, there's limits in the United States, and as a Canadian CEO that runs one of the publicly traded companies, I'm glad that it's a Schedule I drug in the United States. I'm glad that Mr. Sessions got elected, because what it means is that the power of the American entrepreneur can't compete with Canada now and for a long time forward, because they can't raise capital in the stock market. They can't get banking. And the technology we utilize in our facilities, we've been growing marijuana for 3 years. It's called a weed, which would make you reference that it's easy to grow. It is not easy to grow. Okay? You need to grow it consistently, so the same THC and CBD is there through the 4 seasons of the year. You need to make sure that it's done in a way that is safe. Okay, so the challenges to grow this product are many. And any company that's going to start growing it tomorrow that hires what we call a master grower, and there is no such thing you can get a degree for, that learning curve is enormous. So it gives us a tremendous advantage to service the Canadian market, but more importantly, it gives us a tremendous advantage to service the international market. Germany recently passed legislation for medical marijuana. Croatia has passed legislation for medical marijuana. We've turned down opportunities in South Africa. There's many opportunities right now in Australia. So the Canadian companies are really positioned from an investment perspective to take advantage of that. And the world is a big place. And what's happening with the opioid crisis in the United States is happening in Canada. It's happening out throughout the whole world. And medical marijuana works. So it's just a question of when it's going to, to balloon beyond what any of us can even imagine. And that's the exciting part. I spoke on Wall Street 3 weeks ago. Some very smart people there are saying it's a $200 billion a year industry in about 5 to 10 years. And it's literally nothing now. Now in our country, they're projecting $8 billion a year in sales. We don't have to educate the customer. He's already buying it. He's buying it from the black market. Okay? We just have to continue to educate our doctors, who more and more want to find another tool in their toolbox to help their patients alleviate their symptoms. So the opportunity is tremendous. Challenges, also tremendous. Our industry, Organigram, had a product recall here recently. We're probably the 13th or 14th in 3 years. So there are challenges there, but we work through it. And hopefully we're defined by what we do after we have a challenge and not what got us in the mess to be in a challenge. So, we have that opportunity to learn and to grow, and the smart grow from it, and the stupid make the same mistake twice. And I think that, we're very comfortable that moving forward that, we learn from our mistakes. So talk a little bit about OGI. We're based in the east coast of Canada, right above the state of Maine. We were the third applicant to get a license, third applicant to apply at the federal government for a license. We're the 13th to get its license. And we grow indoor, so we recreate Mother Nature inside. And the purpose for that is in Canada, there are 4 seasons. And there's a major snowstorm home today. So, we have the reality of 4 real seasons. And if you want to create a product consistently through the 4 seasons, you need to grow it indoors. Okay? And even in Canada, if you go in a greenhouse, you still need air conditioning, you still need heating, you still need dehumidification. We are not Southern California. So we grow indoors. We look at very much differentiators. I was not the founder of the company. I was a local guy who had the vision to apply for the license, but he's not someone that would have given a lot of investors confidence to write a check. So he was able to, raise a little bit of money in Moncton, but not enough to get the facility going. I was recruited. Moncton is my hometown. I started several businesses out of university and was very well known in my community. I was, president of minor hockey, did a lot of things for kids. In my part of the world, you're president of minor hockey, you're about 10 notches above the mayor. In terms of status in your community. So I was well known, I was successful, and I was recruited to move back home and write a check. So when I speak about Organigram as an investment, I wrote $1.6 million the day I got there in February of 2014 to save the company. I didn't get these free founder shares. I paid for my shares. 3 weeks ago, I wrote another check for $350,000 into the company to buy more stock. So the management of Organigram is very much aligned with an investor. And that's important because, when you look at the investment opportunities, how do I do my due diligence? We were the first company in Canada to come up with financial statements that were cash flow positive and profitable. And that's relevant. I have some of my competitors that are currently burning $4 or $5 million per quarter. I don't even understand what that means. Okay? I have some of my competitors, and I'm not going to say a lot of negative things about competitors, but they say they're going to be the biggest. They're going to be the best. I don't even know what that means either. All I know is when I look at my shareholder group, because I'm a very selfish person. I'm the company's largest shareholder. When I look at my shareholder group, I'm going to make sure in the next couple of years we give the biggest return to our shareholders because it benefits me. The paycheck I collect there, I was retired for 5 years, living in Montreal and Miami. And I can tell you, most would understand Montreal and Miami. Moncton's not the same town. Okay? I moved back to Moncton to do this. The reality is I did it for my community. I seen the opportunity. And, here I am today. So, when you listen and you look at your various companies in terms of where you want to invest, you need to do a lot of due diligence. I speak about the fact that we're the first ones that are cash flow positive and profitable. We've got over $60 million cash in a bank. We've got an expansion that's undergoing right now on a site. And that's relevant because in Canada, our license is attached to our address. I cannot expand across the street. It's a new license. It's a 10-month to a 1-year process. So we have a very expandable site, $60 million in the bank. We've already put out that we're the first ones that are profitable, cash flow positive. We have some of the lowest costs in the industry. And the management is very much aligned with the shareholders to make sure that we give a good return. So, it's a fairly simple story. But you still got to do your due diligence. And yesterday, as Michael mentioned, people asked me in their Q&A, in terms of due diligence, what do I look for? So I'm going to put out a few things that you might want to consider. You look to invest in a Canadian marijuana company, you want to look at its market cap. You want to understand what its current market value is. Ours is about $270 million. Some of my competitors, $1.9 billion. You want to say to yourself, which one's easier to triple or quadruple? Because if you're looking for 8% return on your money, you're probably at the wrong place. Okay? People that are sitting in this room, people that invest in our industry, they want to double their money, they want to triple it, they want to quadruple it. I took the company public at 85 cents 2 years ago. It currently trades at, I think, 270. Our annual shareholder meeting is a major love-in. People are very happy. But, we're not done. So what's the market cap? More importantly, what is that market cap fully diluted? This is information you can do in your due diligence. What is that market cap fully diluted? Very, very critical. What are their costs? Okay? Everybody speaks, I'm going to be low cost. Well, don't tell me what you're going to be. What are you now? Because history usually takes forward the future. Fiscal responsibility. Who's losing money, who's bleeding money, and who's making some? Simplicity. I mentioned about one site. So, in closing, you got to do your due diligence. I've given you a couple points to focus on. I think the opportunity is tremendous. We don't got to teach people to buy this product. They already buy it. It's an amazing medicine, and it's just being understood. And that will bring on tremendous sales. It's a highly regulated industry with great barriers to enter. Very capital intensive. Our facility here, by the end of this year, will probably spend $55 million. Very capital intensive. Towards OGI, listen, I've got to finish with that, right? We got the capital in the bank. We got proven management. We got low cost. We've proven we know how to run our business and not lose a bunch of money. We've got the right partnerships with companies out of Colorado to teach us the oils and edibles. We've got an expandable site and a management that's very motivated. So do your due diligence. I came out of retirement to invest in this industry. I own 4 of my competitors, and I'll say it, full disclosure, several $1 million of some of my competitors. Simply put, I believe in the industry. And moving forward, for myself, I'm 55 years old. Generationally, I'm not sure we will see an opportunity like this in the next 20, 30 years. And I say that with conviction, I say that with passion, and I say that with honesty. But do your due diligence. Thank you. I don't know if we have time for a few questions. Michael? Yes? Sir?
Is cannabis for related much to the marijuana we always saw on the farm?
Oh, God, no. No. I remember, for full disclosure, in university, I tried the product a few times, and I did hit hell, and I did like it, for the record. But, that was a lot of years ago. I still remember, here's a good way to answer your question, is I remember back in the day, you were 4 friends sitting down, ready to go Friday night, and you literally smoked 5 joints. We all know what a joint is, cigarette. You're 4 friends, and you smoked 5 joints. The product we produce today, 4 friends will smoke a third of the joint, put it away, and save some for the next day. Okay? Because if you make the mistake to smoke the whole joint, you are going to have a problem. So the quality of the product is far exceeded what it used to be. And the beauty of it, too, is when we look at it as a medicine, and this is the misconception, the biggest problem with cannabis being considered medicine is that it's also a recreational drug. And it clouds a lot of people's judgment as to, come on, it can't be medicine, you just want to get stoned. No, it does work. So eventually people are coming around to that. The doctors are coming around to that. And the other thing that's a misconception too is if you take the product, you have to smoke it. No. Most of our customers vaporize it. They put it in an edible. Okay, they don't smoke it. They don't roll a joint, which we see on TV or our perception. Okay, they medicate through other means, which brings it a lot more mainstream. So that answers your question? Yes?
As a matter of clarification, the marijuana that's out there that's not regulated can be laced with just about anything.
Yeah, and then, the question is, the marijuana that's out there can be laced with just about anything, and we're seeing this currently with the opioid crisis with fentanyl. I think in Canada we have a tremendous problem with fentanyl, and they're lacing it now with carfentanil, which is literally a grain of salt will kill 5 people. So yeah, the marijuana that's out there, it's a competitive market in the black market, so they want everybody to get a different high from it, so you don't know what's in it. It's one of the motivations for the federal government to legalize it because you'll know what's in the products. We're highly regulated. We're selling a plant material that can't have bacteria in it. Just for the record, that's a challenge. So, very highly regulated and people can know what they're buying. Yes, sir.
Trade on the U.S. exchange.
Pardon? Yes. We trade on the Toronto, thank you. A little bit of self-promotion. We trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol OGI, and we trade on the OTCQB under the stock symbol OGRMF. And I haven't checked in a couple months, but up until a couple months ago, we had the highest volume of every Canadian licensed producer on the U.S. exchange. So there is some decent liquidity there, and opportunities to trade the stock with liquidity. Yes, sir.
What's the current square footage that you have now, and what are your expansion plans?
Yeah, we grow on 3 levels. We're the first ones to kind of pioneer that. It sounds really simple, put marijuana on 3 shelves. Everything sounds simple, it's not. The environment, the microenvironment within all 3 levels in that room have to be identical because it needs to flower perfectly the same in every little corner of the room. The technology required to do that is enormous. I think the square footage is a bit of a misleading one. I think what you want to go to is what your production capacity in terms of kilos. So we can currently produce about 4,200 kilos. If you translate that into dollars, about $35 million a year. And we've undertaken a construction expansion. It'll be ready on November 17th of 2017. It'll take us to about $140 million a year. So in my presentation, I spoke a little bit about the word simplicity. We have one site. We're going from $2 million worth of sales a quarter to $3 million worth of sales per week in about a year, less than a year and a half. Okay? When you do your due diligence, want to look at management. You want to make sure that the skill set is there to be able to accomplish that, because that's no small feat. Yes, sir.
What is the distribution mechanism like? Do you have like retailers and wholesalers?
Yeah, so currently for medical marijuana, we can only mail it directly to the patient's house, straightforward. Moving forward in recreational, there's no doubt that there are going to be dispensaries, so government-owned stores in the various provinces. So we'll wake up with 13 customers, which is, for example, the New Brunswick Liquor Control Board or the Ontario Liquor Control Board. And then we anticipate in our country pharmacies to be able to dispense soon also on the medical side. So there's about 17 large pharmacy chains. We anticipate that that'll be another customer. So you'll soon be able to walk into a store and buy the product and have a good shopping experience with knowledgeable staff. I think my time's running out, but last one, go ahead.
One more. These grow ops, they're growing marijuana and they're caught.
And they're what?
And they're caught by the cops.
They're caught, yes.
Yeah. Who would use that marijuana? Or what would you do with it? Would it just confiscate it and burn it?
Yeah, they burn it.
If it was, they get away with it.
Make sure you're this way.
Well, I mean, there's no question that, you can, my saying is you go behind Walmart and get it from Billy Bob. You can buy it everywhere. So the reality is it's been a recreational drug for so long that there is a very effective distribution system put in place. But, I think like all things, 70, and we could debate whether it's 70%, 80%, 70 or 80% of society, once given the opportunity to buy it legally from a controlled store where you're buying, like the lady said, could be laced with anything, 70, 80% are going to go down to that convenience and buy it through a legal channel. You may still have a percentage that, continues to buy it from somewhere else, but, I don't think, Budweiser worries too much about people who make home brewing, or, we're not going to worry too much as an industry about, people that grow at home. I think my time's up, and I want to respect the next speaker, so thank you very much for the opportunity to present.